So I was honest with Fiona at the beginning. You know, I told her how I was. I told her it was black and white. I told her I'm not dealing with bullshit. You know what I mean? I says, you know, maybe you need to go away and think about this. You know, I says, before you do come up. You know, I says, because I'm not having anybody tell me what to do. I said, it's as simple as that. I says, I've had that my whole life. And I says, and I'm not in Northern Ireland anymore. I said, I'm here doing my own thing. And I says, I'm living my own life. And I says, you know, if it gets to the point where we do get together, I says, we have to find a compromise of fitting into each other's lives, you know what I mean, and respecting, you know, each other for the things that we do, you know what I mean, and I said, that's, you know, that's who I am. I said, I'm always going to be blunt and honest. I says, I don't sugarcoat shit. I says, and tell people it's a brownie, you know. I said, that's just not me. I'm not that type of person. And she, you know, she was okay with that. She, you know, she said, I appreciate you telling me this, you know. And she says, and I'm still going to come up and see you. And I was like, that's okay, that's good. So, I signed off. And I says, you know, give me a call anytime. I says, I'll ring you back. I said, it doesn't matter. I said, if it's fucking 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I says, I don't really sleep that much. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah, call me anytime. You know, and I'll call you back again. And I says, you know, we'll you know, we can talk as much as you want. And she says, okay. She says, I'll call you later on if that's all right. She says, I'm up here on my own, you know. She says, and I said, yeah, fine, no problem. And she says it might be after 12 o'clock because she was still doing the books and she was still taking orders and, you know, and she was still taking bookings and, you know, payroll and all this type of stuff. And I says, yeah, whatever, you know. And that was it. So, about 20 minutes after that, I was eating a couple of oranges and Dick rang me. Fucking Dick. And, you know, Dick was, hey, Gibson, what's the crack? Fuck. Which he got from David. He didn't really know what the crack was, to be honest. Hey, what's the crack? You know, hey, Leprechaun, hey, Lucky Charm, you know. And it was really good to hear from Dick. And he asked me how I was liking it. I told him it was okay. And, you know, also with Dick being a pilot, he says, Dave was saying you've been flying Andy's plane. And I said, well, you know, not really flying Andy's plane, you know. I said, I've taken off and, you know, and I've landed and, you know, and I've, you know, flew it a little bit, like, you know. I said, he goes, what kind of plane is it? I said, it's a Piper Aztec, you know, twin turbo prop. And he's like, whoa, nice, you know. And he's, yeah, great plane to fly in and stuff. And he was, you know, asking me if it was, you know, checking the pitot tube and did I know what ailerons and servo taps was, and did I know how to, you know, check the fuel to make sure the fuel was clean, and, you know, did I know all the dials yet, and, you know, all this type of stuff, and the, you know, GPS and you know, all this, you know, stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm learning it, you know. So, and then I told him that Andy was gonna, like, let me fly the plane over the next 5 times, a bit longer, take off, you know, taxi. I was learning to speak to the tower as a student pilot. I said, I'm going to be booking my official student flight, I says, in about 4 weeks when we've got a bit of time from, you know, coming back from the Caribbean. And I says, and I will apply for my FAA medical, which meant then, you know, I could officially take flying lessons as a student pilot and then go from there. And Dick was saying that it was between, I think, 60 and 75 flying hours, and then it was 10 hours with touch and goes or something, and then night flying, and then solo flying, touch and goes and things like that. And he said then it was, he thinks around nearly 800 questions, and then they pick 60 out of those. They pick random 60 out of 800 for your final exam and stuff. And he just says there's a lot of work, Col. You know, he says, you know, just apply yourself. And, you know, he was asking about, did I know what the 4 forces of flight was, the Benelli principle, you know, the shape of the wings, all this type of stuff, you know. And I was answering his questions, and he was like, you're learning, well done, you know. He says, we'll make a pilot of you yet. So it was all to look forward to. He said, I heard you've been at the gun range. And I said, yeah. And he says, next time, he says, you come with me, he says, to the ranch, he goes, we'll go shooting, we'll go hunting. And I said, Dick, let me just fucking enlighten you to something, mate. I says, the fucking way we hunt in Northern Ireland, I said, is different than fucking putting feed down and sitting in a tree and fucking shooting a deer when he comes by and just fucking sits there eating, you know what I mean? He says, we shoot. He says, we fucking hunt. We walk for miles over the fields, you know, looking for rabbits, or, you know, looking for jackrabbits, as they call them, hares, and, you know, he says, we walk for miles. We don't fucking throw feet out and sit in a fucking tree and shoot them, mate. You know, with a bow and shit, which I didn't like. I didn't like that, you know. If I, you know, was to shoot something, I'd rather just kill it straight out, you know. I says, I don't like fucking hunting bears or anything like that. I said, I think that's fucking pointless. But, you know, that's just the way Americans were. They were raised and born with that, and, you know, and it was something I had to, you know, be respectful of. And I think it kind of touched a nerve with Dick, like, you know what I mean? And he's like, fuck you, Gibson. He goes, I fucking hunt. He says, I don't sit in a tree, you know. So it touched the nerve of Dick. So we had a bit of a giggle, and, you know, he mentioned to me that he was still teaching the 2 young cops, you know, the judo and stuff, twice a week for an hour. They were doing really well. Dick had actually graded them from white belts up to yellow belts, and then they were progressing then on to, I think it was orange, or something like that. But they were doing really well. Dick said that they'd come a long way. You know, he said that he had been putting them through, you know, lots of randori, lots of, you know, wrestling, rolls, you know, tomonagis, you know, flicking over the head, you know, teaching them ippon sayanagi, and, you know, all this type of stuff. And he said they were coming on really, really well, and the whole attitude had changed. They'd really mellowed down, you know. And he said that Inspector David, you know, had thanked Dick and me, and he says, you know, thank you for doing this. He says, no, to the police, you know, he says, my officers, he says, it's really improved them, you know. And there was a few more guys had asked if Dick would take them on as a class, and Dick said yeah. Dick had loads of time in his hands, so Dick said yeah, he'd start a little school for them, and they all needed to buy the gis and stuff, so they were all, Dick says next time he went up to the States, you know, he'd buy the gis and they would pay for them coming down, so that was all good. Island life, he said, just carried on. Mentioned the storm. Dick was all battened down for the storm, and mentioned the storm to Fiona also. You know, up there in the jungle could be quite rough. Trees would fall and all this type of stuff, and so she was a little bit of afraid being on her own. But life on the island went on. There was no drama. Everybody was diving. It was mid-August now, and you know, the season had picked up, and everybody was making money. There was no fights, no dramas, and San Pedro was San Pedro. So Dick had said that the boat wasn't the same without me. The Manta 4 wasn't the same without me. He said Ollie missed me. Ollie was asking after me. You know, how long I was going to be away for, and, you know, was I going to come back again, and, you know, and then Tim had been working on the boat but had taken a break for it. So Dick had gone on the boat a couple of times. He'd gone out a couple of times on the boat to act as dive master. He knew the Blue Hole very well. But Dick liked being on the island. He liked socialising, and but you know, he had done that to keep things going. Tim was getting more heavily involved with, I think, his girlfriend Tracy on the mainland, and but he would come out and see Rosie. You know, he always made a point of coming out and see Rosie. And Dick was also working for Chuck, the American dude, so he preferred to be in Belize City, and I just basically told Dave that he would do 2 more trips, and he would call it quits on the Manta 4. So Richie said that as long as he could take his little wife, you know, his little wife and child with him, he'd go and dive. And Dave said, yeah, not a problem at all. And you know, Cal had no choice in that. You know, Dick owned the boat, David was he was renting it. So Gary, Dick and Dave told Cal, you know, this is going to happen, and that was it. And also Richie's wife was a great cook, so she helped Betty cook and clean, which was really good. And people goo-gooed and gagaed over Richie's little baby. She was absolutely gorgeous. And Maya, I think her name was, and people goo-gooed and gaggled over it, you know. And Richie would have put a little life vest on her, and he would take her into the water, and she would kick and splash around. She absolutely loved it. And so yeah, it was brilliant. So things were working out really, really well. And you know, I asked, you know, Dick how he thought Dave was, and Dick was like, you know, he's still not himself. And he says, but we'll be up, you know, he says, in 2 weeks. And he says, I hear Fiona's coming up to see you. And I said, yeah. He said, well, we'll be up after that. Let us know.